Hello everybody, this is Graeme Anderson, and today I'm going to be looking at Momiji. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now the theme in this one is rather light, but it's all about evoking the end of summer as the cool weather starts to creep in and the leaves on the tree start to change to brilliant colors before they all fall to the ground. You're really just there to enjoy the surroundings, to admire the different colors in the beautiful landscape. Now the gameplay is all about set collection, and each player has 3 once per game abilities you can use to help manage your cards. Now on your turn, you're either going to be picking up a pile of cards, playing cards from your hand, or activating one of your special abilities. Now you know what, that might not sound overly interesting, but there are a few restrictions that really up my interest in this game. Now hand management is critical in this game, as is kind of watching what all the other players are doing, combined with just a hint of memory. But don't let that scare you off. So, will this game be a prized leaf that will remind you of a beautiful walk in the forest? Or will the game be more like the leaves that just crunch underfoot unnoticed? Let's get it to the table, see how it's played, and I'll come back for my final thoughts on Momiji. So here's Momiji set up for 2 players. Since there are only 2 players, we'll only be using 4 out of the 6 sets of leaf cards. Each set of leaf cards goes from 0 to 3, and there are 5 0 cards, 4 1 cards, etc. Shuffle all the leaf cards together that you are using and deal 6 to each player. Place the deck face down and draw 4 cards, and the cards of the same leaf type are grouped together, but shifted so you can see how many cards are in each pile. The objective tokens are shuffled, of course after you've removed any that are for leaf types that are not in your current game, and you'll turn over 2 plus 1 for each player, so in this case, 4 of them. From the other objectives, you're going to be keeping 2 plus 1 per player, so again 4 of them, face down, and these will be another way to trigger the end game. For this walkthrough, I'm going to be using the learning setup of landscape cards, but in later games you're going to be shuffling the landscape deck, deal out 3, then in player order, each player will take 1 card and then turn over a new one for the next player. Continue until all 3 players have 3 cards. These landscape cards will give you an ability that can be used once per game. Finally, put all the acorn tokens where all the players can reach them. Now this game is played over a number of rounds until either the leaf deck runs out, or all the Torii tokens have been placed. On your turn, you're going to be doing one of the following 3 actions. Collect leaf cards from the display, play leaf cards into your personal area, or activate an objective token. Of course, you can also perform optional actions on your turn, which are discard 2 cards from your hand for an acorn, or use a landscape ability. And you can only do each of these optional actions 1 time during your turn. To collect leaf cards, you'll take the entire stack of one of the piles in the middle of the table. You may optionally pay 1 acorn before you take a stack to draw 4 cards off the top of the deck, add them to the display as normal, and continue with taking the stack of cards. Each leaf pile on display also has a maximum of 6 cards, so when drawing cards, if a pile is already at its maximum, you're going to be discarding the extra cards. You do not automatically refill the display back up at the end of your turn. The only way new cards are added are through either a player paying an acorn on their turn, or if the display is ever completely empty. Either way, draw 4 cards and add them to the display. For an action, you can also play cards out of your hand. In your personal area, you'll be creating piles for each type of leaf. Now each pile must start with a 0 card, and after that, the same type of leaf must be placed on top of that pile. Once you start your pile, you're only allowed to look at the top card of the pile. When you add a card to the pile, the number must be the same or exactly 1 higher. If the card is showing 0, you can only play a 0 or a 1 on it. Now once a pile has a 3 card on top of it, you cannot play any more cards on it, including another 3. These 3 cards have a Torii symbol on them, and as soon as one is played, that pile is closed and you place one of the Torii tokens on that pile. When you make your piles, there can only be 1 pile per leaf type, and you cannot start a new pile in between piles you already have in your personal area. So when you are playing cards in your hands, you have 2 options. You can either play 2 or more leaf cards to different piles, and if you play cards this way, at the end of your turn you're going to check for matching pairs of acorns between your piles, and you will collect 1 acorn per pair. And the pairs do not need to involve the cards you have just played. The other option is to play 1 or 2 cards to the same pile, but you do not get any acorns for this action. Note that once played, the order of your piles can never change, and no player may ever count cards in a pile, including their own piles. The last of the possible actions is to activate an objective token. You pay 3 acorns to move one of the unclaimed objective tokens and place it in front of you. Now everyone can still try and fulfill that objective, but they will not get the full points if they are not the owner of the objectives that they fulfill at the end of the game. Now the last optional thing you can do on your turn is activate one of your landscape abilities that does not already have an acorn on it. You'll perform the one-time ability the card gives you and place one of your acorns on the card. That acorn cannot be moved and is not counted towards your final score at the end of the game. Now the game is over when either the deck of cards runs out or the last Torii token is placed on a player's pile. Each player then gets one more turn, including the player who triggered the endgame. And finally, you're going to add up your points. For each pile of cards in your personal area, you count up the number of cards in the pile and multiply it by the top card. So if you have 5 cards in a pile and the top card is a 3, you're going to get 15 points. Next, add any leftover acorns, then have a look at the objective tokens. If you acted an objective during the game and you fulfilled that objective, you'll receive 10 points. If you fulfilled an objective that you do not own, you're only going to be receiving 3 points. If there's ever a tie, then the players will receive their respective points. And finally, the player with the most points is the winner. Now let's get back to see what I thought about Momiji. So let's start off with the theme and components. The theme of this game is very light, but not in a bad way. The idea is just to enjoy the moment in fall, watch the leaves, pick a few up, and really admire their color. In that sense, the game works very well. And the components really bring that theme out. From the art on the cards, the landscape tiles, and even the acorns for scoring works well to make this a cohesive theme. Now it's not super dripping with lore, but still a theme I found enjoyable, even if it is a little on the light side. So let's talk about the components. I found it's top quality components all around. The cards are bright and colorful, and it's easy to tell the different leaves apart. I just really love those landscape tiles as well. The fact that you can take any 3 and put them together to create a new landscape was great. And the iconography on them is a little sketchy, but luckily they're all listed here on the back of the rulebook if you need to look them up, which you probably will. I also like the acorns, and I like that they were acorns. They kind of fit well with the fall theme. The rulebook is nice and clear, so I felt excellent job on the components all around. Now lastly, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is super simple. You're either picking up a pile of cards, playing cards into your play area, or playing one of your landscape tiles. I really appreciate just how simple the gameplay was to explain and to play. But I do think the game has a little more to offer than really the simplicity the gameplay shows. The fact that you can't have more than 8 cards in your hand really gives you some good decision points during your turn. Let's say you end up holding on to the 2 or 3 of a certain leaf for a long time, waiting for more 0s and 1s. But how long is too long to hold on to them, because they are clogging up your hand? If you see a second 3 card come up, do you grab it just to discard it for the acorn and also to deny your opponents the ability to get maximum points because there's only 2-3 of each leaf card? What about scooping up 0 cards later on in the game when you see your opponent maybe hasn't started that leaf pile yet? Again, not only are you managing your cards you want to play in your 8 card limit, but you're also using that 8 card limit to deny your opponents the opportunities to score. I also enjoyed the acorn management. With the piles not automatically refilling in the middle of the table unless they're empty, you're often trying to weigh up giving up a point, because that's what the acorns are, they're points, to try and get more cards. And paying 3 acorns to get an objective token can make sense, even if it's to deny someone else getting the full 10 points from them taking it. I love thinking about things like that during the game. The gameplay is so nice and easy, it left it up to me to kind of open up to start to think about maybe these little more subtle strategies that I could deploy. And the last little nuance to the game is that slight memory aspect to it. No player can ever look through a pile of played leaf cards. Doesn't sound like much, but knowing that there are only a certain number of each makes remembering what people have in their piles important. If you see a 1, 2, or 3 of the same leaf in the middle of the table that you could pick up, are there any 0s left to collect? If not, you're not going to be able to play that 1, 2, or 3. But you don't have to do this. This is what me and my group tended to do because the gameplay facilitated that. But you don't have to worry about all this memory and card management. If you're playing with an inexperienced crowd, you can easily play it at the top level and have a really good time with the game. But the game does leave it open to think about maybe a little more nuanced strategies if you want to go that route. So, would I recommend this game? Yes, I would. It works on a superficial level as just an enjoyable, approachable game and offers some depth to it to those that want to explore the depths. I really like the art and the components in this game, and they really seem to support the overall aesthetics the game is going for. The game is easy enough to pick up and explain, as it has very low rules overhead. The game scales reasonably well, but honestly I do prefer that the lower player counts. 2 players works extremely well. I also like that it felt for almost every decision I'm making, I'm also making a decision on to give something up. Do I give up a point to get more cards? Do I give up on trying to get more 0 and 1 cards because the 1s and 2s are taking up room in my hand? Do I take a pile just to deny an opponent an opportunity, but maybe I don't need the cards? I also really like the memory aspect of the game. Are there more zeros in the deck? Did I see you pick up a card I might need that you picked up earlier? Do I try and push this pile one more card before I put the 3 on it, or is it too close to the end of the game? Now, there were a few downsides to the game, I felt. The iconography and the landscape cards is not always straightforward, but as I showed before, they are all in the back of the rulebook. The game is also random, and the best laid plans sometimes just don't work, but the game's only 20 to 30 minutes long. And although there is some depth to the game, there's not a huge, vast ocean to explore. So if you're looking for something you can play every week to discover new strategies and new things you didn't see before, this game may not be for you. But overall, I'm going to give this game a 7.5 out of 10 and the Dice Tower seal of approval. This is a game that may be written off at first blush as a standard set collection game that really doesn't offer anybody any new mechanisms to the genre. But I would say that simplicity of the gameplay maybe belies a little hidden depth of the game. Now, it's definitely not an endless forest to explore, but a nice little corner of the woods that you can enjoy. And with that, that's it for the moment. So until next time, thanks for watching.